if you were gonna put a name to all of them, like the Shovel Knight's like this hero's journey, and Plagueis Shadows is the romance, and Spectre of Torment is the drama, and King of Cards is definitely the comedy. I'm David D'Angelo from Yacht Club Games, and this is the lineage of Shovel Knight. The original Shovel Knight came out in 2013, and lots of people might own that. So what that turned into with all these additions, so there's Plagueis Shadows, Spectre of Torment, King of Cards, and Shovel Knight Showdown, which were all added as free updates. And they're all big games in their own right. Since they're so huge and massive, we decided to change it to be called Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. And I'm here to explain to you what each of those games are. Shovel of Hope is a 2D platformer in the vein of NES classics like Mario and Mega Man. Shovel Knight is a shovel because when we were thinking about the mechanics of the game, we wanted a character who could scoop something up and then expose their underbelly, flip them over, and then go to down thrust them. So those were the 1-2 mechanics we were thinking of. The only weapon we could think of, or something along the lines of a weapon we could think of, was a shovel. Like old classic game like Mega Man, we have the Order of No Quarter, which is the man's equivalent in our game, which is the knights. So there's Plague Knight and Mole Knight and Spectre Knight and King Knight and Treasure Knight and who'd I forget? Propeller Knight and Polar Knight. And they all have, you know, these interesting personalities and backstories. The Plague Knight is like the shy chemist or alchemist trying to put together bombs and, explore the extensive scientific kind of things, versus like the Polar Knight, who's like all about power and content in the most frozen of places. A big thing we were trying to do with the game was like make them all be appealing to different kinds of people. So hopefully you play the game and you find your favorite knight. We tried to have a similar structure to a Mega Man style game where you're going to all these stages, and at the end of it maybe you come out with like one kind of power up. We had influences from like a Zelda 2 style game or a like light RPG mechanics that showed up a lot after Dragon Quest. So you go into the village and there's people to talk to, and there's equipment to buy, and you can upgrade your health and magic. Is all like wrapped around this world map, which is along the lines of Mario 3. Where you can pick what stage to go to, or there'll be surprises like similar to Mario 3 where there'd be a Hammer Brothers encounter. In our game you might have some kind of boss fight or story scene happen throughout the adventure. I really like just the boss fights, that it felt like we were doing something different that we hadn't seen before in other games. Like the King Knight boss fight is just really simple. There's only 4 attacks, but he does them in clever ways that show off his personality. Like he summons horns from the side of the screen and they blow confetti all over, and you know immediately this is like a pompous character, right? He's a King Knight, like how that doesn't even make sense, right? So I'm really proud of like the ways we brought in these like sort of more modern influences and infused them into these old ideas. Plagueis Shadows is similar to Shovel of Hope, where you're playing through all the stages, but you're playing with a totally different core mobility set. The way he just is really wild and all over the place in terms of he's bursting around, throwing bombs everywhere, he's jumping around, he's doing these like crazy maneuvers, and on top of that he is this alchemist, so he's putting the pieces of his bomb together to figure out like what's the best thing for any given situation. There's components, cases, and fuses are the bomb pieces that you're putting together. So there's 3 separate things that for example, your base bomb, you throw it and it bounces on the ground and it explodes. But you could change how that explodes to be this huge explosion, or you can change the path that the bomb will take, so it homes a bit on the enemy, or it sticks like a sentry and it goes towards them. We were actually surprised by how much people would be switching between the two, or like, you know, I gotta use this for this setup and this for this setup and that for that setup. So recently in the latest edition we added a quick select thing that made that like a lot easier to handle on your hands without opening menus and stuff. You're going through the old stages, but it's taking place concurrent to Shovel Knight's story. So you're seeing like sort of what the side of the Order of No Quarters, like what an example of what it would have been like during Shovel Knight's like story where he's saving the day, right? You see what it was like for one of the villains to be behind the scenes. You play a Spectre Knight in Spectre Torment, and the main thing we were trying to do is make you look cool in Spectre Torment. We were setting it as a prequel, and we wanted it to, since Spectre Knight sort of is like inspired by the character Death, we wanted it to be more somber and have like some of those emotional overtones to the game. But in terms of the gameplay, it was all about like looking cool. So he's the kind of character that has this big scythe, he rides on rails, he skates around, he dash slashes and cuts through his opponents and splits them in half. How do we make it like easy to be really fun and get around the stage? We took things like Prince of Persia's wall climb and Ninja Gaiden Black's flying swallows, where you're homing on the character and cutting right through them. Actions that felt like if I could do that in real life, I would be the coolest person on the planet. Since Spectre of Torment, the difference in the structure is that you can go to any stage. We had to figure out how to make those boss fights be hard, but not too hard, right? And figuring out how to introduce elements that would make them unique compared to the previous ones where you had fought these bosses twice already, but make them not be harder but be more interesting was really challenging. So there's obvious cases like King Knight where when he slams, all the pillars of the ground all shift and makes pits. So he was like an easier boss in the original campaign. But now in Spectre of Torment, we were able to like introduce these new elements that made it difficult. But someone like Polar Knight, it's like he was already as hard as you can get on the scale, and figuring out a way to do that. Like that was the first boss where we tried to do a multi-screen battle and making it interesting in that way. I particularly like Propeller Knight battle, where you're flying through the sky and jumping from platform to platform and chasing after this like debonair character. It's just really enjoyable. King of Cards is, we wanted to try something more along the lines of Mario or a Wario game. So he has a bash, and that's his key move. And when you bash and you hit an enemy, you'll go up into a spin where you can then bounce on them, similar to the original Shovel Knight game. That was the inspiration. We wanted him to be like this big, huge, like doofus kind of character where he's like bashing into walls. On top of that, we wanted to sort of have the structure of a Super Mario World game where you're going in between these short courses as opposed to the big meaty courses of the previous 3 games. And on top of that, we threw in the cards of the King of Cards, which is a card game. This card game that was inspired by like more simple mechanical card games like Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII. Where they just have a few simple rules and they're really building off of that, as opposed to the big, enormous, hundreds, thousands of card Magic the Gathering or Hearthstones. Yeah, King Knight was an interesting one because he was actually the first knight we ever made, and we knew like he always sort of represented a lot of what we felt like was like our personality of like the kinds of things we like to make. He's a knight, character that fancies himself a king, and we sort of like delved into like what does that mean, like, and to us that means like, oh well, he's like probably the kind of guy that like is still at home with his parents and like can't get off the couch. He like can't get a real job because he like wants to be a king, but there's like no king openings, right? He's got problem solving skills. He like knows how to bash into things. He's strong. He's like trained himself to like be good at like things that a king might be good at. He's sort of likable in like a way maybe you wouldn't personally be friends with him, but you could see why like other people might be like think he's cool. He's like wearing this beautiful set of armor, right? It's like, wow, that's like really amazing. But like when you get to know him, it's like, oh, there's not much there. It's sort of hollow. Shovel Knight Showdown is a 4-player platforming fighting game, and I would say, unlike in Smash Bros, we try to lean way more in the platforming direction. You pick one of your favorite knights. There's a lot of playable characters. They all have a very core set of mechanics, so if you played Shovel of Hope and you know how to play Shovel Knight, he plays exactly the same way as he plays in Showdown, but the difference here is that it's 4 players and you're all fighting over gems. So there's gems spawning on the screen and you're trying to get to them, and it's like the first who gets to 5 will win. But there's also different modes where you can just fight to see who, Street Fighter style runs out of health or what have you. And there's a story mode, and and there's a target mini game, and there's a practice mode, and everything you might expect of a platform fighting game. All right, so you can pick up the game on 3DS, Wii U, PC, Mac and Linux. You can get it through GOG and Humble. You can get it on Steam. You can get it through our website. You can get it, what have I not mentioned yet? Switch. You could get it on Xbox One. You can get it on PS3, PS4, Amazon Fire.
Google Stadia?
Not Google Stadia. Sorry, Google Stadia. Maybe one day. Oh, you can get it on Vita. I didn't say that.